Hi there, everyone. It's been a little while since I made a video. Um, there's a couple things on my mind. I want to talk a little bit about diverted salvation. That's a new term that's been coming up for me here in a moment, and it's why I've created this ritual arts series that I'm about to begin on winter solstice. But I want to talk about diverted salvation, and I want to talk about some of the keys that are going to be in this series, so that whether or not you do the series, there's there are a few things maybe you could be working with to feel more fortified during this time. So there's obviously a lot going on. There's a lot of contention. There's a lot of illusion and distortion and manipulation. What is happening, as far as I can tell, is that our deep intrinsic innate knowing of about salvation, about like the sacred needs that we have, sacred need for truth, sacred need for freedom in your own true nature, sacred need for shelter, for refuge, right? The sacred need for love, for adoration, to feel cherished and cared for by life, right? There are many sacred needs that, as far as I can tell, are getting diverted away from the the place in which they can actually be met. So, my invitation to you today, in this moment together and in the series, if you choose to join me, is to come with me to an alliance with pure elements, with the deeper presence that abides, that can actually meet your sacred needs, right? It is so understandable that in the confusion and in the fear, in the unknown, in the uncertainty of these times, that all of us would be looking for some truth to hold on to, something to shelter in, right? Some sense of freedom. And yet, what's happening for many of us is that we're rigidifying around ideas, around political and social movements, around our own fears, we're rigidifying, and we're starting to fracture our lives. We are fracturing the fabric of life. We're fracturing our relationships, right? Instead of recognizing that if these are needs of ours, if truth is a need, then it will have its own, it can find its own meeting, it can find its own answer. But it won't be on social media, and it sure won't be in whatever kind of chaotic, bewildered movement is happening in culture at any given moment. It comes from a deeper well. And then we draw from that well, and we bring forward something that is actually of the good, that actually mends the fabric of life, rather than continuing to fracture it. So in the series that I'm about to hold, it's a ritual series going from solstice, the end of December, to Imbolc, the first light, the time of the first light, early February, through equinox, time of the holy pause, through to Beltane, with the rite of the sacred marriage. This series is going to be a series of restoring alliance with four powers, four aspects of creation that can actually meet our sacred needs, right? So I wanted to speak to each of those here now. So the first one, on solstice, we're going to be working with the darkness that knows. It's the darkest night, right? And the darkness that knows. And what does that mean? That means that in darkness there is nourishment. If you close your eyes and you let yourself for a moment actually drink in the darkness like a substance, it is nourishment. And what that means is that in the darkness of the unknown, in all the things that we actually can't see, all the future that we have no idea, we can't see anymore. Many of us are in this place where it is literally things are wiped clean. There's a darkness in front of us. There's darkness around us. It's what we fill that darkness with that determines our state, determines often what we will be an instrument of. So if we fill that darkness with all of the worst nightmare scenarios, then that's what we live with. if we fill that darkness with a bunch of hopeful but fantastical and completely unrealistic scenarios, that's also what we live with, kind of an empty nothingness, right? Fill the darkness with nourishment. Drink in darkness as a place of power, as the fortifying, substantial, literal nourishment that it is. It's in the darkness that all the excessive lights can be dampened and dimmed and can turn off inside of you. All of the neurological overstimulation, right? All of the things that are just rolling and rolling and rolling in you, right? The darkness can bring us to shelter. And when we repair an alliance with darkness as that, as a sheltering, nourishing presence that actually can hold us, restore us, and give us strength, give us refuge and renewal so that whatever we face in the future that we cannot see, we are actually resourced. Then we've restored an alliance to a pure element, to darkness, what it truly is, and how it's here to serve, right? In the series, then we move into Imbolc. So, following the seasonal wheel, Imbolc is the first light, the first milk. It's that moment between solstice and equinox, right in between the two of them. And in the series, we're going to be invoking the flame that remembers, the flame that remembers. So the first light. And so here, it's an alliance with light. We've worked on an alliance with darkness. We've restored that. We've turned toward it. Now we turn toward an alliance with light. Importantly, in the series, it's called She Who Keeps the Keys. In the series, we're going to be looking toward what is the pure light, because there are a lot of illusory lights, right? And how we know, what I can give you in this moment is how you know what an illusory light is by the fruits of it, right? How it makes you feel, right? Does it pull you out of yourself? Do you feel confused? Do you feel helpless? Do you feel like you're wrong? Do you feel shamed? What do you feel? Because something can come to you in veils of light, veils of all the right words, all the best intentions, all the everything, right? All the social correctness, all the everything. And still, it's not a true light if what its fruit is inside of you and in life is to fracture, is to collapse, is to create pain, and to further foster more illusion, right? So the flame that remembers is a pure flame, right? There's a simplicity to it. It's as simple as loving each other. It's as simple as lighting a flame of connection and prayer, devotion, lighting a flame together or inside of yourself that is pure, and then holding yourself to that purity and allowing all that comes to you to be purified in the light of that flame, that simple, incorruptible flame. So we'll get more into that in the series. I don't know how, hopefully that speaks to you, at least in terms of a sense of what can live inside of you and how to start differentiating between all that is happening, most of which is illusory or at least manipulative or at least agenda driven or at least not necessarily drawing from the deepest well that you can know and that you can draw from. When we move into equinox, we'll be working with the wisdom that heals. We'll be invoking the wisdom that heals. Equinox is a time of balance, right? It's when the day and the night are equal in their reach, right? So for us in the series, we're going to be looking at equinox as a time of the holy pause and asking, what is wisdom, right? Because this is a time of wisdom, of balance. And we're obviously going to be looking more deeply into it there, but what I would offer here is how you know wisdom is not rhetoric. It generally can't be represented on social media because it's a palpable, substantial reality. And wisdom repairs the fabric of life. It does not fracture it. It does not add to excess. It simplifies. Wisdom draws things down to their simple root, right? So a lot of the rhetoric, a lot of the excess that's happening in the world right now is not rooted in wisdom. And you can see the way that it's fracturing life, the way that it's spinning things into excess, into a pace that's too fast, right? And into a fracture. So how you know wisdom is she's non-oppositional. In the lap of the mother, things that seem to oppose each other are brought together to make each other more true, right? In truth, in wisdom, what is true does not need to be in opposition to anything else in order to be true. It just is what is, right? There's a repair of the fabric of life, a weaving and a mending. Wisdom is all about right relationship, right timing, right proportion, right action. It means that one action that over here is correct and appropriate and right is not over here. That it's not just the action, it's not just the word, it's not just the sentiment, it's not just the intention, it is the full relationship of everything that's happening, right? It's the relationship of your words to the one who's hearing them, right? Of your action to the timing at which you're going to take that action, right? So wisdom is the bigger holding, ultimately, of all of this. And there is a much bigger holding to even all of what we're experiencing right now. So that's what we'll be working with in Equinox. And I encourage you even now, it's like, well, what are the natural laws? What are the natural cycles? What is bigger than you? What is bigger than human culture? The sun rising and setting, the moon cycling, the rain falling and rising again. There are deep resources for us that are resources simply because they are bigger than the myopic situation we find ourselves in right now as human beings in this particular time of life. Right? Our final kind of ritual time in this series is going to be around Beltane, May 1st. With the love that abides, evoking the love that abides. And in each of the series, we're going to be working with a specific practice from her mystery school and a specific ritual art. So and all the information about that is on the website. But in Beltane, we're going to be working with the lovemaking of heaven and earth as the practice, and the ritual art is going to be anointing. So when we come to Beltane, we've moved from the darkest night through to the first light, through to wisdom, the holy pause before any movement, before any words, into the fruition, right? There is a miraculous resurrection that happens during Beltane. It's the resurrection of the fertility of the earth. It's the celebration of the sacred marriage. It's the celebration of union. It's a celebration of heaven and earth coming together, of lovers coming together, of life meeting life in order to create more. It's a generative time. It's an invocation of creativity, fertility, and regeneration, and the ever-living, like the upwelling, kind of miraculous wellspring of life, right? So what would I say about that in this very moment that might be of use for you is just, for instance, that practice that we're going to work with, the Congress of Heaven Earth, the lovemaking of heaven and earth. One of the biggest sensibilities there is that there is a lovemaking always happening. That is how creation sustains itself, somewhere, somehow. There is adoration, there is cherishing, there's a lovemaking, there's a rapture, and it underlies all of everything else that we experience, and it rises to the surface at certain times, right? At certain times in the seasonal wheel, at certain times in our life. But that we do have the choice to ask to be shown that, to know that, to just remember, to honor the sacred need to be loved, to not forget really why we're here, really some of the truest truth that lives in the human heart, which is to know and to become the love that abides in the ancient way that it has always been with us. So my invitation to you in this moment is to just consider where you're diverting salvation, to have a moment to recognize that the needs you have for truth, to know what is true, right? To be able to express your true nature, to have refuge from all of this, right? And to feel like life is really, there's actual cherishing in life, that it's not just a hard, sad, brutal place to be, right? There are some sacred needs there. And so in this moment, I invite you to just feel into your sacred need. And what does that mean? Is that that need won't rest until it's met. A sacred need is a need that is informed by your soul and by your heart, by your true nature, moving you forward into your destiny, right? There is such wisdom and intelligence in sacred need. It won't rest until it's met. But if you continually turn your sacred needs towards those things that can never meet them, you will be forever in that need, and it won't be met. And what your need for truth is meant to bring you, which is a sense of alignment, orientation, strength, purpose, clarity, you won't have it. You'll just have opinions, and more opinions, and collusion with others rather than real communion with others. If you don't meet your sacred need for shelter, the need to actually shelter, to have a moment, to come into silence, to wrap yourself in incubating darkness, to restore for a moment, you'll check out, because that sacred need won't rest. It still needs to be met, but it will try to find its way in other ways. So you'll check out. And then you're numb, and then you're really not hopeful. And you're losing energy rather than gaining it. Right? You're not cultivating something in the dark that will be brought to light. So I'll stop there, just with just the reason we go, the reason we tend our internal terrain, the reason we tend the hidden sacred within ourselves, and why we look to the depths, especially in a time when so much angst is living on the surfaces of life. We go to the depths so that we are resourced, and so that we can bring from the depths harmony, something from natural law, something from beyond these circumstances that will actually repair and mend these circumstances, these lives, right? That will support the transition that we're all in. So please feel free to join me. The series starts this winter solstice. You can join for all four. You can join for one, or individual ones. Basically, around each holy day, we're going to have 90 minutes together to be in practice together, to deepen into a teaching around the particular alliance we're working with. I'll be teaching you about specific priestess art, a specific ritual art for you to then move into personal ritual with on the actual holy day. And then we come back together afterward to just integrate, to be together, to see what is there to be shared or explored further. Everything will be recorded so that if you can't make the times, you can still participate. And we are going to companion each other from the darkest night all the way into the resurrection of the sacred marriage. Something that kind of happens for many of us on a daily basis. And because it has root in natural law and ancient way, when we reorient to that, to these bigger hands, to the bigger movements, all of a sudden the angst can soften, and the suffering becomes more clean, and the gratitude becomes more lucid, more real, right? And there's resource where there wasn't before. I send you all my love. Blessed be.